Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the Extra Mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now your hosts, Jackson Mummy and Megan Saya from Celebration Bar Review.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 328 of the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. This is Jackson. Glad to have you with us. This is the final week leading up to the October 5th and 6th bar exams. And because those exams are actually going to be on a Monday and Tuesday, very different, we've decided to push up our podcast release schedule just a bit. So hopefully this will be getting out to you with a few days to go until the exam. In today's episode, my co-host Megan Saya is joining me to update everyone on what's going on around the country in terms of the bar exam. We had some updates in California and DC and a couple of other jurisdictions. I'm going to add one brief note about Florida here in just a moment. And then Megan and I did something a little different. We asked the students in our course earlier in the week to tell us what's your biggest challenge in preparing for this exam coming up next week. And we got some great questions from people. And so we did something like a lightning round where we took as many of those questions as we could and we replied to them. And that's really the basis of today's episode of the podcast. We're going to talk about biggest challenges and our responses to them. And my hope is that this will be helpful to you if you are planning to take the exam in October of 2020. Now, if you're taking your exams in 2021, great, we're glad to have you with us, and I think you'll find this valuable as well. And I want to let you know, if you're taking the exam in 2021, that we've got a free training webinar that's just perfect for you. It's called Now is the Best Time to Take the Bar Exam, Why You Should Ignore the Crowds and the Fear. We're offering it on a weekly basis. It's an hour long, and the last part of the session is a live Q&A where I'll update you on everything that's going on and answer any questions you've got specifically about your jurisdiction or your circumstances. The point of this training really is to give you the strategy and the reasoning behind why you should be sitting for the exam and not sitting out. And I'll just tell you that one of the reasons that we started talking about way back in March of 2020 was that we anticipated that results would be better for the people sitting in the exams right now and that there would be fewer people taking the test. Both of those predictions have proven to be true. As we've gotten results out around the country from the first wave of tests, the ones that were actually given in July of 2020, in every jurisdiction, pass rates have gone up, even though the numbers of people have gone down significantly. We expect that trend is going to continue, and we think that those of you that are thinking about taking the exam in 2021 are well positioned to take advantage of that situation. And so in this free special training webinar, we're going to show you exactly how to do that. I really hope you'll join us for it. You do need to register, and you can do that by just clicking in the show notes if you're listening to today's podcast, or if you're watching the video podcast, at the bottom of the screen, there's a link to register. If you want to know more about the training webinar, you can go to celebrationbarreview.com/now, and then we'll see you Saturday for this free special training webinar. Remember, there's a live Q&A, and that alone, I think, is priceless for the people that have been on it. So I hope you'll join us for that. All right, I indicated that there was one update I wanted to add since we recorded our episode. The Florida bar examiners late on Wednesday night announced a second and a third backup procedure for their exam on October 13th. Now, the plan in Florida still is to use ExamSoft and to give the exam in an online format. Florida has the advantage of ExamSoft being used on October 5th and 6th around the country, and it'll either work or it won't work. If it does work, that's what Florida is going to do a week later. If ExamSoft proctoring does not work for some reason, then Florida has announced that they have signed an agreement with the proctoring company that proctors the online LSAT tests to proctor their exam. I don't know if that would work or not. Apparently the Florida examiners aren't sure if it would work yet or not either, because then they said, if that doesn't work, if we go to them and in practice in the week between the October 5th exams and our exam, then we're going to go to an email exam and an open book exam, more importantly. Now, we've been saying for some time that we thought that the end game for Florida might be an open book exam. That is still on the table, but to be clear, at this moment, it is still an online closed book exam. But for the first time, the Florida examiners have at least opened the door to the possibility of an open book exam or an email exam. I think the good news here is that it really indicates that the Florida examiners are determined to give this test. They're not going to delay it again. As you may know, this was the fourth time the exam had been rescheduled in Florida. So I think that's good news. And essentially what's going to happen is Florida is going to watch and see what happens on Monday and Tuesday, October 5th and 6th. If there is a problem with ExamSoft, they're going to switch to this other LSAT proctoring company, and then somehow they'll make a determination about whether or not that company can do the job. And if they cannot, then they'll resort to an email open book exam. So a lot going on there in Florida, and we'll keep you updated on that as we go along. But of course, for many people, the big exams coming up are October 5th and 6th. This will be California, New York, Georgia, and a whole group of uniform bar exam states, all of which giving what's called the Plan B test, so 2 days of testing. And of course, Texas is in that group as well with a different version of their exam as well. So we're going to break all that down for you, tell you what's going on in these different states, and then look at the different challenges that bar takers say they're having in adapting and getting ready and preparing for this different kind of exams. So let's go ahead and jump into our conversation with Megan, looking at what's going on around the country. You're remiss if I didn't say happy birthday. You're working on your birthday.
Yes. Yeah. This is the only work I need to do today, but yes.
Okay, now I'm feeling really bad.
No.
We're glad you're here. I hope you have a great birthday. Thanks for being with us. Let's go ahead and jump into the update on what's been going on in the bar exam world. You want to catch us up?
Yeah. So first, I think important to note is that the UBE July subjects have been released for us to be able to talk about. So even though we had reports and knew what they were, Jackson, if you wanted, actually, this is kind of the first time we get to discuss them.
Yeah. So now that they have been released, we can tell you up front. And if you're taking Plan B next week, you should make note of this. The first essay question was in the topic of evidence. The second was in the topic of corporations. The third question was a crossover. It was wills or decedents, estates, and trusts. That must have been fun. Question 4 was family law. Question 5 was UCC Article 9, secured transactions. And question 6 was real property. So again, evidence, corporations, decedents, estates, and trusts together, family law, secured transactions, and real property. Notable to me that there was only one crossover. Also, rather typical, you have evidence and real property. So 2 of the subjects were MBE subjects, but 5 were not. Yeah. I would expect a bit more balance than that usually on the UBE, but nonetheless, that's where they were. Now, I think the inevitable question is, when you've only got 3 essays to give next week, what will they look like? I wouldn't expect these same subjects. I mean, I think that they would use some others. And since they only did 2 multi-state subjects, I would think you might see a heavier weighting on multi-state than on UBE topics. But who knows? It's unprecedented. We've never had this situation. There's no real way of knowing what that means. But nonetheless, that's what we now know about the UBEs. So I just wanted to give everybody that information.
Great. All right, we've got a few sort of updates on specific states and some movement that's happening that we just want to keep people aware of in case it pertains to you. In DC, and sort of also, I should say, before I start, to head off the rumor mills that tend to happen where people say, oh, I heard my jurisdiction is giving everybody a waiver and I don't have to take the bar exam anymore. So this is just to kind of get the correct information out there. So DC did a waiver, but it is very limited. It's 2019 and 2020 ABA law school grads can either do one of 2 things. They can pick a supervised practice until the next exam and then take the next exam, or they can do a supervised practice that leads to admission without taking a bar exam ever, but that one would be you do the supervised practice for 3 years, and you would be eligible to become a full member of the bar without taking the bar exam. So that's a very limited number of people that it applies to. So definitely there was some confusion, I know, swirling around of, is that me? But if I meet every requirement except for one, nope, got to meet all of their requirements in order to be the people who get to take that choice. I just want to make that really clear. As well, California, they chose a very narrow, even more narrow diploma privilege. So that one's just for 2020 law grads. So I think that's probably not most of our students who are retakes and have graduated law school earlier than this year. I just want to let you guys know about that, to be aware of. This is separate than the question about whether they would allow people who had scored a 390 or above but missed the previous cutoff. They would allow that sort of retroactive score to allow for provisional licensing. That's still under discussion in California. So we don't know what that would look like if they do allow it, but it's still under discussion. So that I just want to be really clear, because I know it gets really messy and people get confused about what's diploma privilege versus provisional licensing. What are the rules? Obviously, every jurisdiction has had really wildly different requirements and rules for who counts and what does it mean if you do count under this. So yes, with California, it's only diploma privilege right now for 2020 graduates only.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. You could call it a 390. I call it a 139, but we're talking about the same thing. It's a 1390 instead of a 1440. There's still discussion about retroactivity, but nothing has changed there. And so you go in, you take the exam, and you shoot for 1390, which would be on the UBE scale of 139. We're going to talk a little bit about scaling in a minute, but it's the number we're looking at, and that's what we expect to see. What do you think is going to happen in terms of the numbers of people taking the Cal exam?
You know, it's really interesting. So when they released the number of people they had registered, it's an obscenely high number of people. Yeah. I just don't believe that many people are actually going to log in on that. Was it a Wednesday this year? I don't think that's going to happen. There are going to be high numbers. Certainly there always are high numbers in California, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere close to what it looks like. I think for a lot of people, it looked like, well, it's online, I might as well, I'll register and give it a shot. Certainly you're going to see some 2020 grads will take advantage of the diploma privilege. You just graduated from law school and your student loan payments immediately, right? Those, they are deferring those for you. So come due and you've got an employer or a potential employer who's saying, look, we're only going to take you under, if we can bill you out. Diploma privilege probably looks like pretty tempting. Allows you to start working right away.
Yeah.
So I think that might, that as you've been talking about, Jackson, it can weed out some of the new first-time applicants from this field.
And I'm saying that, and I'm asking because I know a lot of people are in a go, no-go decision mode probably this week and weekend. I'm going to encourage you to sit for the exam if you can do it. I think a lot of people are going to bail out. I think we're going to see thousands of people who registered who won't show up. So we'll see. But interesting. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about Georgia. So Jackson, if you want to talk, Georgia came out with, I believe, are they the first jurisdiction to talk about how they're planning to scale the multiple choice section, which we've just been waiting. I mean, I remember you talking back in March and April saying, gosh, I'm really curious to see what happens. And no jurisdictions have been up front really with what they're doing, but Georgia
waded right in, to an open book essay exam, but on the multiple choice, they made an announcement. They used the standard language that every Plan B jurisdiction has used about using the psychometrician, and that the national conference has provided the questions, but will not score or scale them. Well, that kind of leaves us open. There's 100 questions. What do we do with it? Well, Georgia has said they are going to try to equate the scaling that the NCB has done on a 200 question exam to a 100 question exam. Now, they don't say how they're going to do it, and they don't commit themselves to what that will mean. But the way the NCB does scaling is it is not a consistent number all across the board. It's not like everyone gets the same number of scale points added. The lower your raw score, the more scale points you get. So presumably on a 100-point scale, a 100-question scale, if you got, let's say, 50 questions correct, double that for a regular MBE, you would get about 20 points added. So your 50 in each section gives you 100, and then you get a 20-point bump, and you have a 120 scale. Well, if the Georgia examiners are doing what I think they're doing, they're just going to cut that in half. And so if you got 50 questions correct in Georgia out of the 100, they give you 10 scale points. I may be wrong. It may be 9, it might be 11, but it's going to be somewhere in that range. So when we think about what it takes to pass, in Georgia at least, we know that you need the 270, and that would typically be a 135. When you do the 135 and cut that in half, now we're down to, my math's not good, 66, 67, something like that. I think what it's going to take to pass the multi-state in Georgia will be about 62, 63 questions correct out of 100. So you are going to get a bump. That's the bottom line here. Georgia said they're going to give you a bump. Now, what I think is interesting is because Georgia announced that, does it mean other jurisdictions giving the 100 questions will do the same thing? I would guess that they will. Georgia was the only one to have the courage to put it in writing early on. You should be watching for that information from your jurisdiction if they're going to put it out. We haven't seen it from anywhere else. I'm not saying it's not out there, but we haven't seen it. So I think what it really means is you'll get some bump on your MBE. It will not be pure. Now, there's one caveat to that before we move on. California is not a Plan B jurisdiction. They're unique, just as Georgia is unique. I have not gotten any sense from California that they might scale their multiple choice. So does that mean, if you got that 62 or 63 in California, you'd get a bump? Well, I think there's a better chance than not now that we've heard what Georgia's doing, but there's no guarantee of it. So again, I want to encourage those of you in California where you need essentially 70 or 69 points on the MBE, that you would be aiming at that 65 to 70 range right now to make sure you're in the safe zone, and anything over 70, I think you're safe no matter what. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It is a bit of a mess.
Yeah,
when you take a standardized test and you unstandardize it.
Little bit, yeah. Okay.
All right. And speaking of a mess, Texas released their exam schedule for their October online exam. So let's walk through this really quickly for Texas students, but it's unusual. Not seen anything like this before. Obviously the biggest reason for the chaos in this schedule is that Texas is doing 12 essays for their online portion. It's a lot of essays that you've got to fit in along with everything else. If you're in Texas, the 5th. Oh, so I'm sorry. I spoke with all the other exams. The in-person exams got switched to Wednesday, Thursday, as opposed to they're always Tuesday, Wednesday. Now they're Wednesday, Thursday, and the October 5th and 6th is Monday, Tuesday. So yes, they're just messing with our heads over here. We're so used to the Tuesday bar.
Right.
Bars start on Tuesday.
Right.
So on day one, starting at 8:40 in the morning, P&E questions, then a break, then MPT, then a break, then Texas essays 1 through 3, they'll give you in one clump, then a break, then 4 through 6. Okay, and then you'll be done for the day. Second day, Texas essays 7 through 9. So notice we had the P&E, MPT, then we start with the Texas essays and we do 2 sets of them on day 1. Then we do set 3 on day 2, but then we do 1 through 50 on the MBE, what they're calling the MBE, but it's not the MBE, the multiple choice portion. Questions 1 through 50, break, then 51 through 100, break, and then we go back to session 4 of the Texas essays. So, just be preparing yourself, I would say, if you're a Texas student. Like, usually, we get into these mindsets of like, today are the essay I'm writing today. I got essays, I got performance tests, like I'm a writing machine. Okay, next day. All right, we're ready for the multiple choice, and I'm in that mindset. So you're going to have to be able to switch gears and the flow, because your days are rather crazy, I think, to go from essays in the morning, MBEs in the middle 2 sections, and then another set of essays to finish off your day. It's a pretty kind of a crazy schedule.
It is. It's packing too much into 2 days. I mean, most of the jurisdictions are starting at a reasonable hour because they're only doing 2 90-minute sessions. It's a more reasonable, 3 30-minute essays, and then a 1 90-minute session, and then a 90-minute session for MPTs. And then on the second day, questions 1 through 50 of the multiple choice in 90 minutes, then a break, and then questions 51 through 100 in multiple choice. And that's the exam. That's Plan B. So it's built into this nice pocket in the middle of the day, I suppose, so that other jurisdictions, if they wanted, could do what Texas did, which was to wrap all this other schmutz around it. I mean, it's crazy. And I do think, Megan, you're right. It's going to take a lot of flexibility for applicants to switch gears. There's a lot of gear switching to do on that first day in Texas. I mean, you're talking about P&E, which is state specific, then an MPT, which is very challenging, as we've talked about, then essays. And you're in that essay mindset, and you start the next day in the essay mindset, and you got to pivot right into multiple choice. And no more have you pivoted out of 100 questions in multiple choice. You're back to the essays. I think those last 3 essays in Texas are going to be brutal for people, just physically and mentally. The other interesting thing about Texas is that they're giving you 3 essay questions in 90 minutes, which means you'll have the flexibility there to divide your time. But again, you want to be very disciplined at 30 minutes per question and not run over on time and get stuck, because you can't save time from multiple choice into the essays or P&E, and each section is discrete. So I think the bottom line here for everybody, whether you're in Texas or Georgia or California or any UBE Plan B jurisdiction, is you got to read the directions very carefully. This is not like anything you've ever done before. Your assumptions about what they're testing and when they're testing, or even the day they're testing. I mean, we're losing our minds here. I mean, we're talking, there is a bar exam going on in several jurisdictions. So here we are on a Wednesday, and this is day 1 of a test that's a Wednesday, Thursday test. And then next week it's a Monday, Tuesday test. And then we get Florida with a one-day test, the week after. I mean, are you kidding me? So just pay attention.
Yeah, definitely. And note definitely for sure that whatever start time is in your jurisdiction, you will be required to log in before that. And they have very hard deadlines. So please, you're going to hear us. We've been repeating it for months. We're going to continue to repeat it. You need to pay attention and read every single email very carefully that your jurisdiction sends you. So Texas, you're starting your P&E essays at you will not, that doesn't mean you roll out of bed and turn on your computer at 8:30. You will, I'm sure, be required to be logged on significantly earlier than that so they can check, make sure that you match, who you say you are, and then set up and ready to go. And you'll hear the proctor instructions online. So just please be reading all of the requirements from your jurisdiction. We will not be talking about that kind of stuff. So make sure that you are, the bar review help you with the law and how to write, and responsibility to make sure that the logistics of the day are, smooth as they possibly can be. Because I recognize they're not very smooth right now.
You think?
Yeah. Ooh. Okay. Questions about study strategies are people who are, they're all about time, but they are in people who are in different sort of scenarios. So let me give you the 3 scenarios and then you can explain how we would deal with them differently. All right. So the first person's feeling behind, saying, I'm trying to catch up and I'm figuring out how to split the time between tests. Okay. So first person just feeling behind with it. Second person is a Florida student who is just real frustrated, ready for July, was ready for August, and basically hasn't studied anything since the bar was canceled back in August, right? You get that frustration of I was ready to go. We were 48 hours out or whatever, 72 hours out. Yeah. So now I do. And then the person seems like doing things well. My mindset is positive. I'm on. How do I attack the next few days leading up to the exam?
Wow. Well, thanks, Megs. Let's take the third one first. The person that feels pretty good about how they're doing and about how things are going should start off. If you're taking the exam next week, you should be doing a little less every day now and starting to just get yourself mentally and physically ready for the test. You don't need a big push here at the end. I think it's much I use is that you're landing an airplane, you're not taking off. So a little less power. Make sure that you're studying today, but doing a little less. And as you get into the weekend, certainly less on Saturday and Friday, then on Sunday, much less, a light review, and then you're into the test on Monday if you're in the October 5th exam. For our student that's a Florida taker that was ready back in August and then put the brakes on, and there were some really good reasons why that particular student had to put the brakes on, some family physical problems. I think you got to turn it on. You got to turn the juice back on, and you got to get going. You've got 50 days or something like that until your exam, and there's plenty of time to get back into it. But you can't go from 0 to 100 overnight. And so you should be studying, and I think in that circumstance, studying probably 20 to 30, 35 hours a week between now and the exam date. So I know some of you really dialed it way back after the Florida exam got waived off. If you've been just on simmer, you need to bring it to a boil now. I think that's really good. And then for our first student, the one that felt really crunched for time, I think the best advice when you start feeling crunched for time is this notion that you've got to do everything, which is a mistake. You don't have to do everything. You've got to learn the things you don't know. So if there is a particular part of a topic that you're having trouble with, go to the bar maps, look at the interactive videos, find that section of the video. It'll tell you how long it is. It's usually a few minutes is all. Find that part of the video, watch that part of the video. Check the mind map for that part, that section of the top, drill down on it. Spend your time working on the things that are most difficult for you rather than trying to do everything all over again. I think when people hit this overwhelm, it's because they think, I've got to learn everything. That's a lot. Learn most everything. Now there's a few things that are still out there, and you might want to be better at them, but drill down on a few things rather than going superficially across a big range. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think you just have to be realistic about the time that you have left and where you are. And so you can't, in that spot where you're not going to be able to get everything in, then I think definitely the way to go. And you just, there's nothing to be done about it at this point, so I would say too, like, keep yourself positive. Don't kick yourself down, and don't make yourself feel, gosh, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Everybody's in their own reality right now of like, here's where you are in terms of your preparedness, and that it is. So let's make the best of every situation.
Yeah.
All right, great. So let's talk about now. I really like this, Jackson. You emailed a bunch of students and said, or you put on Facebook and said, let me know what your biggest challenge is right now that we're right close to the exam. So we've got 15 time, and we can talk about, because I know
we're going to do a lightning round here. Right?
Yeah, with all these people are, I think like it's easy to feel alone and feel like it's just me. I'm the only person who feels this way. Man, you're not the only person who feels the way.
And that's why we do it this way. And we might go a couple minutes over, so bear with us.
Okay. So my biggest challenge is that I'm self-employed with a lot of time-sensitive work being ordered. I'm completely exhausted by the end of the day, which is like 10 p.m. What's your best advice?
I would start cutting way back and not trying to do it all. At the end, you're going to need your energy and your emotional resources. If you're working till late, then I think you just have to recognize the reality of the circumstance right now and start turning it back and turning it off. Doing more will have a diminishing returns effect. You'll actually hurt yourself, I think. So in my view, I think there comes a point when you have to say, this is the best I can do, and let go of it. And that would be my recommendation.
That's great. All right. When I write my essays, I can spot the issues and discuss, but I don't feel like I know all factors, etc. I think it is attitude now.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're an issue spotter, I guess it would be. I mean, please don't be an issue spotter. Please write about what's in the way we've taught you. Work on the conflicts. It's much less work. I think there's a connection between issue spotting and attitude. Issue spotters think they've got to do more, right? If I find one more issue, I win. So you're never doing enough because, look, we can always find one more issue. So the answer to your mindset is change the framework from issue spotting to just do what we have been talking about since day one of this course. And that will take a tremendous burden off of you to feel like you've got to be perfect and do everything and know everything. And that's, I think, the best advice I can give that particular student.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like that's so connected. I can spot the issues, but I don't feel like I know all the factors. You could never. I mean, if you're issue spotting, I promise you will miss stuff because you do not have enough time, whether you're a 30-minute jurisdiction or a 60-minute jurisdiction. You don't have enough time to spot every potential issue. And what that does is it makes you more focused on, I say something about consideration. Well, that might get you no points because you talked about consideration because you issue spotted, but you didn't talk about like the proper remedy for the breach of contract. And that's actually what the question was asking you about, So focus in on the relevant factors, which are the ones in conflict. And then I promise you can get all the factors. Do that. When you focus on the conflict, you can hit everything. When you focus on the issues, you won't hit everything.
Yeah. And I think that the other, relevant people tend to spin out of control before any bar exam, and they suddenly think it should be something different, that they should do something different. But if you've been saying in a certain way, you should continue to do that. Look, there are going to be people listening to this podcast later who are issue spotters. If you're an issue spotter and that's how you were trained, then you should be an issue spotter. You're at a disadvantage, but that's what you should do. I think that the danger is, flipping away from what you've been trained to do something different because anxiety is provoking it. That's a big mistake. You need to be in control of your emotions.
All right. My biggest challenge is make sure I can access the system, passwords, etc. for the exam. I'm rereading in detail all instructions provided by the California Bar to make sure I understand what I need to do on exam day. There have been a lot of emails, though. It's confusing.
Yeah, and I totally get that. I'm glad the student says they're rereading all the emails. Print them out. Print them, for goodness sakes. Check your spam box, check your promotions tab in Gmail. Many bar takers are really bad at following directions. They get overwhelmed. They don't read things carefully. They miss things. They don't see the emails. Take the time, slow it down, and check and make sure you've got everything. If there's still an opportunity to take a practice test, do it. Make sure that you are set. Get your room where you're going to take the test online set now. Like today, don't wait till night to do it. Get it done now. Get yourself ready now. I'm still surprised at the number of people who aren't quite sure how they're going to get set up. It's getting really close to the end here, folks. You got to get it done.
All right. Are the bar examiners looking for the essays to be over a certain word count? I can get up to 700 to 800 words on a subject I know really well. Is this enough?
Well, in a 30-minute essay, I think it is. I think 750 has been our goal. In a 1-hour essay, we would say typically 1,200 words. Those word counts might go slightly because it's online. I think the MPT goes down dramatically, but I think a word count for an essay, that would be good. I think the important thing to remember is in an essay, there are going to be at least 3 disputes or conflicts or, God forbid, issues. And so you're going to have to write enough to cover those, in our writing style graphs for each one of those, that's going to inevitably get you to about 750 words. So I would worry less about the word count and more about the coverage of the question to make sure you've fully covered it. If you're just writing 2 headings and 2 paragraphs, you're not going to get enough of an answer. And when I see answers, typically they're 400 words or they're 700 or better, right? I mean, that's where most people.
Yeah, I think it's really important to note because I feel like more this exam cycle than any other, I've been hearing this a lot from students that they have this idea in their head that the bar examiners have like you get penalized if you don't hit a certain number of words or that you automatically get rewarded for hitting a certain amount of words. That's not true. And so I don't really know where this is coming from, but
probably a Reddit thread somewhere. All truth comes from Reddit.
Yeah. So what matters intent of your essay? I hope we don't have to say that, but I'm just going to say it just in case. What matters is the content of your essay, not the amount of words. You could write gibberish. You could copy the dictionary. That would not get you a passing essay. I hope that's obvious, but I'm going to say it because I've been hearing this a lot more this cycle than I think I've ever heard it before. So word counts are not something magical that get you a passing score or a not passing score. So, okay. My biggest not having enough time to have a solid performance test answer and making sure everybody's out of the house when I take the exam.
Well, okay. So the out of the house, look, bribe them, pay them, give them something to do, find a family member, do something, but get them the hell out of the house. I mean, just get them out. This is really dangerous. If a adult walks through the room, you could be disqualified. So it's not an option. It's not, I can just have the kids in the other room. That is not a solution. And if you haven't figured out that solution today, you need to get it done today because that's an absolute. Now, in most of these jurisdictions, it's from like 11 a.m. to maybe 4 p.m. So it's not for 12 hours of the day, but for during that period, they got to be out. So I think that's number one. The performance test is more difficult. I think performance tests are going to be hard for everyone. I think the quality of performance tests will be diminished for everyone. I've looked at what reviews were teaching about the performance test, and I got to tell you, it's not very impressive. And if that's the best they can, I think our students are way ahead of the game here. And I will do well on the performance tests, but not as well as they want in hard copy. I would say practicing that at the end is probably not a bad idea. And if you've got the opportunity to use real scratch paper in your jurisdiction, practice with some real scratch paper. If you have the opportunity to use virtual scratch paper, practice that way. Find out where you're most comfortable, and then get at least one, maybe two more performance tests in. And then I've been watching Outlander. In Outlander, they say dinna fash about it. It's going to be what it is, and you just do your best and keep moving. It's graded on a curve, and I think based on what I'm seeing from the big box bar reviews, you're gonna do just fine, because boy, there's no way most people are going to be able to do what they wanted their students to do. So there you go.
All right. My biggest challenge is the difference between a 45-minute and a 30-minute essay.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And I think the big difference comes in preparation times. 5-minute essay, you've got the luxury of, 10, maybe 15 minutes of prep. In a 30-minute essay, there's really no prep at all. You're just reading the problem, you're setting up the outline of the answer in your answer itself, and then you're drafting into the answer as we've described in our videos for how to write online questions. And I would go ahead and write that way and just get into that practice. Now, in Georgia, where they've made this switch from 45 to 30, the real question is, will their questions be as long as they were? Hard to say. You should watch my Georgia, the preview video. I talk about that there, but I think it's really, again, a matter of practice. People write 30-minute essays all the time. The real concern is whether or not it's got the same amount of material as a 45-minute essay. If the examiners do that, scores are going to go down for everybody because people won't be able to cover it. So I think the examiners had recognized that and cut it down. Also, because it's open book in Georgia, get your mind maps ready, and you can go right in and start writing immediately. I think a lot of people are going to get bogged down with their bar review books and their notes in front of them and not know where to look and all that. Your mind maps are the absolute, zero in on the thing you need at the point that you need it. So that's what you should be practicing, is online writing with the mind map.
All right, my biggest challenge is to remain confident that the work I've done has built me a foundation that I have the skills to pass. I've done enough practice questions and read enough model answers. The other challenge is to remain calm and focused on the task at hand.
Yeah, well, I would say, and I don't know if this student went through the Abundance for Bar Study Masterclass. If you haven't, that's what I'd spend 90 minutes and go through that class. I think that's a booster shot when it comes to all of those things. If you don't want to do that, there are videos in the course in the video countdown tab that would be helpful for you as well. If you've been using paraliminals, I would use the appropriate liminal recordings to assist you there. I think that's a good, valid thing to be concerned about at this stage. It's more important that your mindset be right than learning another outline or another rule when we get close to the exams.
I'm stressing on the format of the California test. I've watched the update videos, but I still don't quite understand where I will be logging into. Are they going to send us instructions? Who is telling us when to start? Is it just ExamSoft? I heard Megan say we had to go elsewhere for passwords and then open our files. It's so confusing. Any clarification would be appreciated.
You want to answer that?
Sure. What they've had, you need to read the emails that are coming to you. So those emails are going to tell you where you're going to get, because these aren't just, the files aren't magically arriving, right? So we're going to download the software, and there have been many, many updates to the software. If you have a new update that your jurisdiction is telling you to download, you need to download it. If your jurisdiction tells you, hey, you're going to log on to this website to get, a password that you're then going to put in, you need to do that. Whatever it is that they're telling you to do, because I'm not going to answer this specifically because every jurisdiction is different. So you need to do exactly the things that your jurisdiction has told you to do. Please, someone at Celebration Bar Review or someone who you also know who happens to be taking the exam to tell you this I mean, you are the one who is responsible for this kind of information. So yes, I know I talked about you going to the web password. That was the way they did the baby bar. And even with that, when they did the baby bar in California, and with that, there were many people who did not realize they were supposed to do that. And so California is trying to learn from that and make some adjustments. But I think it's like the way from that is you need to follow the instructions. Like today, you need to make sure you 100% understand the instructions. Like today, you need to make sure that you understand.
Yeah, I had a mini stroke when I read that message, because I just was like, oh my goodness, have you not been? I hope the student has been reading and following what's been going on. I have this terrible fear that they're expecting something to come us or from somebody else. Look, check all of your emails. It's on you. It's 100% on you to get this ready. And if you don't have any of this information, you need to get off this call right now and go get with the Cal Bar and get it and be prepared. This is what it is and what you got to get done. And I got the shakes just thinking about.
Yes. So yeah, to their question, are they going to send us instructions? Yes, you should have gotten lots of instructions.
They did. Yeah. Right. Yeah. In every jurisdiction, they have sent instructions.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you're not getting those emails, you need to get in touch with your examiners immediately. There's also, I would be concerned about whether or not you've been dropped from the exam, because there have been deadlines that have passed that if you're not getting emails from your examiners, you probably have not met those deadlines. So yes. Okay. I'm going 2 minutes left, so we're going
to get through them all? Okay.
No, we're not going to get through them all.
Okay.
Okay. There's a lot in here. That's okay. I'm going to find some. Okay, this is a good one. Just trusting in myself and not second guessing myself. That's the biggest challenge.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, is just trust yourself. It's not changing answers. It's not rethinking and doing something different than what you've been studying and practicing. It's following through on the work that you've done. And this is when people start to doubt themselves and get freaked out. And so that's why you use these tools we've given you in order to keep your confidence. And if you do that, then you'll be fine.
Yeah. All right. And then there were like my biggest challenge, not knowing or being able to recall enough law. Somebody else said, I know the law, but I get tricked up with the answers and I don't know if I have selective intuition. How about that kind of a fear about like the black letter law portion?
Yeah, I don't think you need to know black letter law. This course has never been about memorization. It's been about all of the information in your non-conscious brain, bringing that to bear on the problem when you need it. It's like putting a search query in Google. Until you put the search query in, nothing is returned to you. But when you ask the question, you get the answer. That's what happens with your brain. That's what the human potential movement's about. That's what this course is built on. Those of you that think you have to know black letter law, that you have to have memorized or created flashcards or done phonics, you're in the wrong course. That's not what we've taught you to do. And everything is built on this idea of just responding to the question. That's what selective intuition is. It's literally activating the material in your brain on the basis of a question, whether it's an essay or it's multiple choice. That's what you've been practicing, and that's what you should continue to practice through the end of your studies. Switch to something else. And I'll say what I said at the very beginning today: slow it down. The more you slow it down, the more you check your breathing, the more you check your approach, and you think about what you're doing, that you are intentional about what you're doing, the easier it is to open up that way between conscious and conscious brain. And so that's the key right now. It's literally not how rules you know, it's how you approach what you know.
Yeah. All right. And we have one in the chat box that I'll say, because I think it's a pretty universal one. Biggest challenge, did I prepare enough?
Yeah, isn't that a tough one? That's the second guessing. That's the postmortem that people do. And when you do it as a premortem, then you really make yourself nuts. Yeah, you did. Sure you did. Look, you signed up for the premier bar review course in America, for the course that gave you the most tools and the most ways to go at this. You came to a course that prepared you with lectures and outlines and mind maps and tools, and you did all of that work. You've written essays, you've done performance tests, you've taken multiple choice tests. Really, what else do you need to do? The only thing that remains to be done is to go and do it. For those recognizing that you have the power within you, it's not something external. You don't have to do more. And the people who try to do more between now and exam day will exhaust themselves. They will frustrate themselves. They will flip out by increments. Stay away from all of that. Look, you get to take the exam at home. You don't have to be in the environment with all the craziness. That's a huge advantage in my mind. And so just stay calm, follow what you've been doing, follow the pattern and the practice that you've had, and give yourself the best chance to succeed. If you don't succeed, life goes on. Trust me, it goes on. But you know what? The results we're seeing so far have been great. The students that took the exam in July 2020, we've gotten some results out, great results, and across the country, great results. And so it's a good time to be taking the exam, even with everything going on. So just relax and give yourself the space to be your best on the test. And I think that's probably, I would leave it with people today.
Yeah, wonderful. Best of luck to everyone who's taking the exam on Monday and Tuesday. We're always, whenever there's thinking of you, praying for you, just like, yes, you know it, you've done everything you can. Don't freak out about the window, when you sit down at that level, trust yourself.
Replicate last night's debate. Just be calm. Just final thing to say, challenge. I hope we've given you at least a sense of what the kinds of things other people are asking. And I hope you see that you're not all that unusual. Most of these questions, we got a lot of questions, but they were all pretty much the same or variants on them. I think you all are ready to go. You've worked hard. We've had this extra extended time. And so for those of you in California, Georgia, New York, all the Plan B jurisdictions, you're ready, go for it. Those of you in Florida, one more week to go, a little more or less than that, and you're going to be ready as well. So everybody have a great few days of Megan, have a wonderful birthday. And next Wednesday, good luck to everybody. Last on Monday and Tuesday. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for listening and watching the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at celebrationbarreview.com.